Welcome back. In our last video, we ended on the question, how do we design for the things that we can't see? Now, there was a really interesting idea that was presented by Christine Miserandino back in 2003 or so, and it was called the spoon theory. Now, Christine is someone who lives with a chronic health condition, and she was trying to explain to a friend just how difficult day-to-day tasks can be. I would encourage you to Google spoon theory to learn a little bit more about it, but the general idea is that everyone starts the day with, let's say, 20 spoons, and each time you do something, it costs a spoon. Now, getting up and taking a shower might cost you 1 spoon, but someone living with a chronic health condition, it might cost them 4 or 5 spoons. And at that point, they don't have much left. Now, there has been a bit of research into this idea, and there's a concept called ego depletion. And to oversimplify that a bit, willpower is generally thought to be an inexhaustible resource. So you wake up with a certain amount, once it's gone, it becomes very, very difficult to persevere through and actually do more things. We also know from research that stressful situations tend to cost more. So if willpower is an exhaustible resource, we go through that resource more quickly if we are working on something that is particularly stressful for us. So how might we solve some of these problems using design? Let's start with the question, what is design actually for? And generally speaking, design is to help users get the things that they need as easily as possible, which is why a good example of bad design might be putting the back pain medicine on the bottom shelf at the pharmacy. Or things like this, where it's very confusing and the users don't necessarily know what's expected of them or what they should be doing next. So design is really meant to clearly communicate to users what they should be doing, what they should be expecting, and to make their life easier in some way, shape, or form. So if we're thinking about what design does, it does 3 things in particular. The first, design simplifies choice. When we overload users with too many choices, it tends to be overwhelming, it makes it more difficult for them to make a choice, so it simplifies the number of choices in front of them. It also provides direction so that it's not confusing for the learners to figure out where am I supposed to go next and what am I supposed to be working on. It also reduces the burden. If we think about what we talked about in one of the previous videos, where most of the registered accommodations in educational environments are not for physical impairments, but are instead for emotional impairments, mental health disorders, learning impairments. What we're doing is we're making it easier for our learners who live with learning impairments or emotional disorders or mental disorders to find the things that they need without feeling overwhelmed. Now, we all make a series of decisions every single day in our life. Whether we're doing something for work or school or home, we're always making decisions. And so what I'm talking about is how do we help make that decision-making process easier? It's essentially reducing the burden. I call it the Bill Withers rule. After that line, if there's a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right down the road and I'll share the load if you just call me. And so what we're going to do is we're not going to make them call us. We're actually going to help share the load ahead of time for our learners. Now, I think we can do this with the lens of design, and in particular, there are 4 characteristics that I want to focus on. Those are context, compassion, clarity, and consistency. These 4 design principles can have a huge impact on our course design by reducing the decision-making burden for our learners, while at the same time making our courses more accessible and more inclusive. In the next series of videos, we're going to cover what these 4 C's actually mean in a practical context.